Welcome to the Happy Mindset. Today's episode is episode number 72, and today's episode title is called Becoming an Optimist. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about optimism, because it's been a driving force in my life. Optimism has been a way for me to move forward with my life. So when I talk about optimism, I'm talking about recognizing the things that haven't gone to plan in your life and recognizing the bad times and the downsides and the dark sides to yourself, while at the same time being relentlessly focusing on a better future for yourself. So I found the benefit to doing this is that you become more grounded as a person. Like I went through phases of positive thinking, like blocking out negatives and trying to block out negatives and trying to focus on the positives. And it never fully aligned with me. It did help, but it didn't feel fully aligned with me. I felt disconnected from myself in some way. So becoming an optimist, though, in my view, is a more balanced approach to life, and it's more in line with how the real world works, because whether you like it or not, things happen in life. Things happen that are hard to explain, and things just kind of get thrown at you. And I often see life as just a test as well. It kind of tests your nerve and tests how much you want something. So with optimism, one of the things I would have struggled with was, how do you recognize something that happened to you in your life, or something that was traumatic, or something that was hard to deal with? How do you learn to recognize that without getting stuck in it? So that was my biggest fear, was being stuck in that experience. And so in even writing the book, my book talks a lot about the mental health struggles that I went through. And I guess one of my fears would have been that would become me again, that would become my identity, and I get lost in it again. So what has helped me is to look at the positives as well in your life. So look to the root cause of why has things gone so wrong in your life. Why do you feel like you're on the wrong path for yourself? And when you start looking at it from that approach, when your intention is to understand the bad times so you can get to the lessons behind them, that's when you can start focusing on a positive force in your life. That's when you can start focusing on the things you want to focus on. I feel if I had just looked at my experience and tried to look at the bad times and not look for the valuable lesson in it, then it would be very easy to be just consumed in that, because there would be no point to it. There'd be no purpose to it. When you've got a purpose and you've got an intention, then that has helped me to navigate the tough times while focusing on what I want from this to move forward in my life in a positive way. So practically speaking, when I was looking at my dark times, I was asking questions like, what happened to me? Why did I become a shadow of my former self? What happened to the boy that loved to write? What happened to the boy that loved language? Like when I was growing up, one of the extracurricular activities that I did was to learn Spanish before I went to secondary school. And that was something I wanted to do. It was one of those few things that I enjoyed doing. Language was always something that I had an affinity towards. And even the English language when I was growing up, I always enjoyed learning new words and using new words. And somewhere along the line, a mixture of different things, I gradually lost touch with that. And that's when I felt like I was wandering off my path more and more. So it was by looking at the dark times then that I started questioning, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling so disconnected from myself? That I was able to shift my focus back more towards the times where I felt connected, which was childhood. Because the thing is, when you're a child growing up, you don't have an awful lot of conditioning. You haven't been conditioned by society, family, different religion, different things, politics or whatever. You haven't got all this kind of conditioning and baggage in blocking from what you see in the world, like influencing your perception of the world. So it's the best time to look back on, to just remember how you were then, because that's how you more naturally were. You weren't really constrained by an adult mind with all the baggage that kind of goes with it. So that for me is a much more powerful than faking things or trying to block out negatives. Because what would tend to happen for me when I was trying to block out negatives was that I would project my experience onto other people. So it wasn't that I was negative, it was that there was negative and toxic people in my life. And so when I wasn't acknowledging my part, which comes more from the optimism, you acknowledge that there's a negative side to yourself as well. When you can acknowledge that, then you can start to shift more towards that. You can take more of your personal responsibility back and try and change that in some way by asking yourself questions and getting to the root of why you look at things in a certain way. So when I was focused on the more of the blocking out the negatives and just focusing on the positives, I was losing invaluable lessons when it came to the negativity. And as well, I wouldn't have been able to look at the darker aspects of my life or the things that I've gotten wrong, because I would be trying to block all that out and I would lose all that knowledge. So that's, for me, is how you can start having a more optimistic mindset, how you can start making progress in life. And when you do that as well, you've less and less fear around people who are cynical or who are going to try and bring you down. As you become more of an optimist, you realize that you don't have to convince people of anything. You're having your experience, you're learning your lessons. Because you're learning difficult lessons as well, it gives you a certain resilience and it gives you a certain strength of character as well that you would be missing if you overlooked all the kind of negative aspects of yourself, because you'd be afraid of anything to do with that. So that's optimism. That's been my experience of it. I hope that some of the things that I've shared today will help you to look at optimism and to see where you can start bringing more of it into your own life. A practical thing to do that I've started to do more of now myself as well is to be more intentional with the questions and the assumptions that I'm making every day. So, like when it comes to things you're stuck with in life, like certain people, certain situations, when you look more towards the questions and the assumptions you're making, that's when you can start to break free and just look at the simple things. It doesn't have to be anything outlandish to begin with. These things are like small little things over time. I guess what helps is that like you're not looking at it from a point of view of judging yourself. You're looking at it from a point of view of how do I change things in my life where I'm not too happy right now. So for me, writing is a great way to gain some self-awareness and gain some distance from your thoughts. So that's why I like to write today, because it gives you distance from things. Like before I really got into writing, I would just have the same kind of patterns of thinking throughout the day. I think at one stage I wouldn't have been aware of the patterns of thinking at all. At another stage I was aware of them, but just didn't know what to do with them. And then when I got to writing, that's when I was able to put those thoughts onto a page and start organizing things, start making things more clear, more structured. And so you can apply that to all aspects of your life. It's like when you start putting things onto paper, you can start seeing some of the meanderings of your mind, and you can start focusing a bit better as well. So for me, writing is a great way to deal with things that have gone on in your past, to break free from the past, and to also give yourself an opportunity to imagine a better future for yourself. So that's a great, writing is a great tool for that, for optimism and for forward thinking and for clarity of mind, and to even help you through the tough times. Another great thing that writing is good for is that extra step of when you're feeling something uncomfortable. The best thing to do with that is to actually take the time to feel that feeling, let it pass through you. And then writing is a great way to actually externalize the thoughts that are coming from that feeling, to put them onto a paper so you can start to see like what are the narratives that are going on there when I'm feeling overwhelmed or anxious about a certain part of my life. So it gives you that distance, and it makes you become more aware of like the damage that this stuff can do to you if you're not aware of it. But when you are aware of it, then you can start making a bit more progress in your life step by step. So yeah, that's optimism. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you're interested in getting my book as well, Taking My Life Back, you can head on over to my website, happymindset.com, or head on Amazon. I'm also helping people to write books. So if right now you feel like you would like to write a book but you just don't know where to begin, then you can reach out to me as well on the website or on Facebook as well. Join the Happy Mindset group and you'll find me there. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.